With Plan B emergency contraception, we're in control of our future. It's backup birth control you take after unprotected sex that helps prevent pregnancy before it starts. It works by temporarily delaying ovulation, and it won't impact your future fertility. Plan B is available in all 50 U.S. states at all major retailers near you, with no ID, prescription, or age requirement needed. Together, we've got this. Follow Plan B on Insta at Plan B One Step to learn more. Use as directed.
We gather here tonight to bring women back to their rightful place.
The Testaments, a new Hulu original series from the executive producers of The Handmaid's Tale.
It's easier to accept a story than believe that the people around you are monsters.
The battle isn't over.
There comes a time when you have to take action, when you have to choose your own destiny.
Never quite as it seems.
Watch the new Hulu original series, The Testaments, streaming on Hulu and Hulu on Disney Plus for bundle subscribers. Terms apply.
Hey, Mama. Thanks for making all my favorite recipes.
Hi, Ma. Thanks for your unfiltered advice.
Hi, Mom. Thanks for always being by the phone.
Hey, Mom. Happy Mother's Day.
When you ship UPS Air at the UPS Store, your items arrive on time or your money back. Guaranteed at no extra cost. Exclusively at the UPS Store U.S. retail locations. Visit the upsstore.com/airshipping for full details. Terms and conditions apply. Send your Mother's Day gifts at the UPS Store and we'll get your gratitude there on time.
Welcome to the inaugural episode of Midnight Horror Stories, where every week and in each episode, I feature an original short horror story from a talented writer. The idea for this show sprang out of my other podcast, The Red Treehouse, because of a terrific problem. I was getting more story submissions than I could schedule. And rather than have authors potentially wait months before their story featured, it seemed a better idea to start another show dedicated solely to fiction stories. Today's debut episode features a story from yours truly, and I call it The Mirror. It's one that I narrated on The Red Treehouse over a year ago, but have since updated for a new narration. Something interesting that you likely don't know. The story takes place in my childhood home in Brooklyn, New York. More than anything, I wanted to give the reader a strong sense of place, for the house itself to feel like as much a character as the people inhabiting it. The room locations and descriptions are true to real life, as is the multi-story setup. And I'm thrilled to narrate it for you. So sit back, turn down the lights, pull up the covers, turn up the volume, and pay close attention as I narrate The Mirror. I'm Will, and you're listening to Midnight Horror Stories.
Now at McDonald's, a McDouble is $2.50, so you can get your gym gains on, or just get lunch for only $2.50. Get more value on the under $3 menu.
Limited time only. Prices and participation may vary. Prices may be higher for delivery.
The row house was unspectacular from the outside, with nothing to distinguish it from the others. Nestled in the middle of the block, the buildings on both sides of the street provided a sort of cover, ensuring it never drew the kind of attention it deserved. The orange-red brick, bright in areas, was mostly weathered and dirty, with the remnants of mold and moss pressed firmly into the grooves. Faded aluminum awnings hung over the windows and front stoop, offering a slight shade in the dead heat of summer and protection from the elements in the frigid winter. Iron bars, intended to keep intruders out, secured the windows on the main level and basement. During the day, it was nearly invisible. At night, though, the flickering streetlight produced a strobe effect. It didn't matter. People walked by without giving it so much as a passing glance, completely unaware of the horror festering just a few steps away. What the fuck was that? Eduardo thought, sitting up in bed. His senses heightened, It took a few seconds to realize the sound he heard was his own heartbeat and labored breathing. The humidity sat thick in his throat as he sucked air in big gulps. Another night terror. His eyes burned with sleep, and he blinked hard to adjust to the dimness of the room. Within a few seconds, it took on familiar features. The chair in the corner, the dresser in front of the bed with a tube television atop, and Gabriella asleep next to him. The pitch black gave way to a dull gray. "I should check on the kids," he whispered. The amorphous blob of red light from the alarm clock sat in his peripheral, and though he couldn't make out the numbers, he lamented being up for good. Eduardo slipped the covers off gently and slid his legs off the mattress, taking care not to wake his wife. They often joked about how much Gabriella hated sleep. It didn't take much to wake her. Eduardo's head fell as the clock came into view. 1:42 a.m. He'd been asleep less than 2 hours and still had another 4 before needing to be up for work. Setting his feet in slippers, Eduardo lifted himself slowly off the bed and walked through the room, dodging furniture as he went. With one hand on the knob and the other on the doorframe, he pulled it open, hoping to dull the squeaking hinges. The light outside the bathroom window bathed the hallway in shades of blue. He paused before stepping out of the bedroom, eyes downward, listening intently. The tick-tock of the clock on the kitchen wall rang in his ears, but just beyond that, silence. He peered into his son's bedroom. The moonlight slipped through the Venetian blinds, entrancing Eduardo in the shadows cast along the walls and cascading onto the floor. He shuddered as a shiver slid down his spine. Shadows kept secrets too dangerous to bring into the light and too scary to search for in the darkness. Recently, the boys had asked him to put in a nightlight, and every night they begged him to plug it in. He obliged, but didn't admit to anyone. Hell, he could barely admit it to himself. It was as much for him as it was for them. Maybe more so. It seemed silly that he, a hardened man in his early 30s, would be afraid of the dark. It was something little kids feared, not grown men. The boys were asleep, their breaths rising and falling in a rhythmic cadence. The tension in Eduardo's shoulders eased. He stepped back into his room and glanced at the alarm clock before climbing into bed. 1:48 a.m. The soft hum of the air conditioner lulled him towards sleep, and as he drifted off, he heard what sounded like footsteps in the distance. I must be dreaming, he thought, closing his eyes. Eduardo, hurry up. It's about to start, Gabriella called from the living room. Give me a minute, I'll be right back. It had been 4 days since the Carsons left on an impromptu cruise to who knows where to celebrate their 60th anniversary, leaving Eduardo in charge of placing their mail on the kitchen table each day. He did more than that. Every night it was the same routine. Take the mail, check every room including windows and doors, and lock up before turning in for the night. The Carsons were past retirement age and had recently started looking for an assisted living situation. The long staircase leading to the upstairs apartment wreaked havoc on their bodies, and Eduardo groaned as his knees popped with each step. He hoped they would offer his family a chance to move in when the time came. It'll be sad when they're, he said to himself, cutting off the thought as a small lump formed in his throat. He'd grown up on the tough streets of Sunset Park, Brooklyn, in an era when the crime rate was high and poverty even higher. He'd watched family and friends struggle to build a meaningful life, with some making it out, and more ending in tragedy. He couldn't think of losing anyone else. Eduardo checked his watch. 8:58 p.m. The X-Files started in 2 minutes. Moving quickly, he dropped the mail on the kitchen table and made a mental note to come back after the show ended. He hustled down the staircase, skipping every other step, and nearly crashed into the heavy glass door after slipping at the bottom. He rushed into the living room, where the X-Files theme song filled the air. You just made it, Gabriella said. Yeah, I need to go back after the show. I don't understand why you check every night. They haven't been at home for a few days, and it's not like anything ever changes. I just feel better knowing everything is in its place, he said, opening a box of Junior Mints. For the next hour, they watched their favorite show, Gabriella's head resting in the crook of his shoulder. Life had been busier than usual, with Eduardo working late hours, and they savored any chance they could spend together. Now, after a long week, the boys were in bed, and they could finally relax.
It's 10 p.m. Do you know where your children are?
That was Eduardo's cue to head upstairs and finish his rounds. Halfway up, he noticed the top door was open. I must have forgotten to close it when I rushed out. At the top, he could see the mail was on the kitchen table where he'd left it. Before stepping in, he reached his arm around and flipped the light switch in the kitchen. The bulb lit up for a second before popping and going out entirely, blinding Eduardo momentarily and filling the air with the pungent smell of phosphorus. Shit. Eduardo's pulse quickened as he rubbed the spots from behind his eyes. The circuit panel was in one of the closets near the bathroom, towards the back of the apartment. Standing there, he realized his vulnerability. He was a sitting duck if anything jumped out from the darkness. To his left was the entrance to the staircase. To his right, the entryway to the living room. And straight ahead, the hallway leading to the bedrooms. He searched desperately to figure out what to do next. I need to get these damn lights on. Closing the door to the staircase, he slinked along the back of the kitchen, stepping with his left foot and sliding with his right to make as little sound as possible. He watched both entrances. When he reached the opening to the hallway, Eduardo peeked around to survey the area. Nothing. There's nothing to be afraid of. He tried his best to convince himself, but the darkness was heavy around him. He could almost feel the weight of it pressing down on his shoulders, and he swallowed hard to steady his nerves. It feels like someone is watching me. Without realizing it, Eduardo turned back towards the kitchen. And in that moment, time seemed to slow down as his brain registered what his eyes were seeing. Holy shit. He stepped forward, partly to catch his breath, but mostly because the doors to the two bedrooms and bathroom were open, their cavernous mouths mocking him. The soft hum of the exterior light roared thunderously in his ears. He moved quickly towards the staircase, keeping an eye on the entryway to the front of the apartment, the black hole threatening to pull him into its gravity. Go, Eduardo. Now. In one motion, he ran down the stairs, being careful not to trip, and burst through the door of his apartment where Gabriella stared at him with confusion in her eyes. What happened? Are you okay? Eduardo. He tried catching his breath, his nerves shot from the adrenaline coursing through his body. Answers came in short spurts. I think someone is upstairs in their apartment. In the rush to get inside, he'd forgotten to close the door, leaving them prone to a potential intruder. He silently thanked Gabriella as she moved past him to lock the door. Eduardo's hair was matted to his forehead, and sweat dripped from each side of his jaw. His eyes offered appreciation as Gabriella brought him a cold glass of water and a towel to dry his face. Eduardo, did you see someone up there? He shook his head. Not exactly, no, he said, putting up a finger as he chugged the water. I think someone is fucking with me though, because when I went up there earlier, I put the mail on the kitchen table. Eduardo set the glass down and began demonstrating with both hands. On the left side of the table. When I went back just now though, the mail was exactly where I'd left it. Same pile, same place. His voice dropped. Gabriella, it couldn't have been more than a minute or two. But when I looked again, the mail was on the right side, and it was stacked in size order. The look in Gabriella's eyes betrayed confusion. You don't believe me, do you? I'm just trying to understand what's going on. How could the mail move and you not see who moved it? I don't know how it happened, but I know what I saw. Listen, I think you should call the police. I mean, it's not your responsibility. Call the cops and let them handle it. And tell them what, he said, simulating a phone by putting a hand up to his ear. "Officers, there's someone up there. The mail changed places on the table. I swear I put it on one end, and it moved to the other." "No, I didn't see who did it." Gabriella cut him off. "Listen, don't be an asshole. I'm just trying to figure this out too." Eduardo's thoughts shifted to the possibility of an armed intruder hiding in the apartment. Only when Gabriella shook his shoulders did he snap to attention. "Eduardo, listen," Gabriella said, muting the television. "What am I listening?" Creaking, like a rocking chair. Back and forth, coming from upstairs. It went on like this for over a minute, before stopping abruptly. They looked at each other, the silence communicating loudly. She seemed to read his mind. "Eduardo, you can't go back up there. You need to call the police." He paced the kitchen, lost in thought, barely hearing Gabriella's voice. "I can't wait for the police to show up. I need to go up there. But what if they're armed? What if they have a gun?" Eduardo pulled at his chin hair with sweaty hands, hoping the pain would spark an idea. What if, when they're done up there, they try to break in down here? What's to stop them from coming for us? I need to do something. Having made up his mind, he turned to the small closet beside him, hoping to find the aluminum bat he kept for situations just like this. In the distance, he heard Gabriella pleading with him, but it was no use. His resolve was immediately tested when they heard what sounded like someone walking across the upstairs living room towards the kitchen. Except the gait was unusual. Where they expected to hear one footstep after another, it sounded more like a step and drag, as if the person had a limp. Eduardo and Gabriella followed the sound before it faded near the back of the apartment. She sighed as Eduardo grabbed the bat and walked out.
Tomorrow morning is knocking. Stock your fridge now. How about a creamy mocha frappuccino drink? Or a sweet vanilla? Smooth caramel maybe? Or a white chocolate mocha? Whichever you choose, delicious coffee awaits. Find Starbucks Frappuccino drinks wherever you buy your groceries.
Why does this staircase seem so much darker? The sound of his footsteps reverberated off the walls. At the top, standing in the doorway, Eduardo hesitated. The cool air sent a chill up his back. He stepped forward, but was jolted by the ting of the aluminum bat hitting the edge of the threshold. A bitter metallic taste flooded his mouth as waves of nausea turned his stomach into knots. Now they know I'm up here. His thoughts drowned out the footsteps coming from the front of the apartment. The intruder was almost in the kitchen by the time Eduardo heard the footsteps. "Oh shit," he whispered to himself. Crouching low, he backpedaled until he hit the wall. As it neared the opening, Eduardo closed his eyes and took a deep breath and held it as he tried to melt into the wall in the hope he'd escape notice. The footsteps stopped. Alarm bells rang in Eduardo's head as he slowly opened his eyes. In the darkness, he could make out the silhouette of a figure standing in the middle of the room. He squinted, but couldn't tell whether it was facing him or looking away. There's something familiar about it, like I've seen it before. Eduardo rubbed his eyes, hoping to get a better look, but the figure had disappeared. He listened for a moment, his thoughts roaring despite the quiet around him. I should have stayed downstairs. Now it's too late. I need to keep my family safe. But what if I can't? He squeezed the handle of the aluminum bat. "Listen," Eduardo dropped his voice to sound intimidating. "I'm not the one to fuck with. Come out and we can talk. But don't let me catch you." He moved towards the back of the apartment, confident he'd cornered the intruder, and felt for the door on the left side of the hallway, which led to a spiral staircase that acted like a spine for the building. A person could easily move between apartments if they had the master key. The deadbolt was secure. Besides, he'd have heard the loud click of the lock disengaging if anyone tried to open it. The bathroom was directly across, but Eduardo paused as he grasped the knob. The door was slightly ajar, and pitch black behind it. I know this door was wide open. He felt the sting of a friction burn as he tightened his grip on the bat. Using the tip, he pushed the bathroom door open, letting his eyes adjust to the light before stepping in. It felt like hours since Eduardo went upstairs, bat in hand. He should have been back by now. It unnerved her that he wasn't. Why didn't he listen to me and call the police? She'd pleaded with him, but Eduardo was stubborn. So was she. A native New Yorker, Gabriella was the youngest of her siblings. Stubbornness was familiar, comfortable even. Anxiety was harder to deal with, and she couldn't remember the last time she felt like this. Eduardo, hurry up already, she said to no one, but still hoping he would hear her. She looked at her watch. Another minute passed. I need to call the police. It's too quiet. Where is... She heard Eduardo's footsteps moving towards the back of the apartment. Where are you going? She said under her breath, dialing on the cordless phone.
911. What's your emergency and where are you located?
Hi, yes. I need a police officer to come to my home. 386 5th. Her voice trailed off as she heard the intruder move towards the back of the apartment. Towards Eduardo.
Miss, I didn't get that address,
said the 911 dispatcher.
Say it again.
Gabriella heard the line go dead. The silence was maddening. The light hanging outside the frosted window gave the small bathroom an eerie ambiance, making it seem larger than it was. Eduardo noticed the stand-in shower to his left. The curtain was shut, creating the perfect hiding place for an intruder. Holy shit. Eduardo opened the curtain and was startled when the rings echoed as they slid against the rod. He exhaled, his breath warming the chill in his bones and steadying his heart rate. The shower was empty. His relief was short-lived, though, as the sound traveled to his ears. Eduardo slid to the side wall, his shoulder tucked behind the bathroom door. His instincts told him to close the door to put something between him and the intruder. Ultimately, he decided against it, fearing it would attract unwanted attention. Standing still, he turned his head slightly to catch a glimpse of the hallway from the corner of his eye. By now, the intruder was outside the bathroom door, and his face grew hot as blood rushed to his temples as he strained his eyes to see who, or what, was out there. He took a small half step to his left and turned to face the open doorway, the bat at the ready. What the? He said quietly under his breath. He listened as a bedroom door opened, which one he couldn't tell, and then closed. What the No fucking way. His head spasmed as a shiver slid up his back. The two bedrooms loomed over him, door shut tightly. He reached for the doorknob to the guest room and was surprised to find it open smoothly. Inside, a warm yellow nightlight offered some visibility. Eduardo stuck the bat inside the partly opened closet, clothing and coats offering some resistance. So far, so good. He inched cautiously around the bed to the drapes shrouding the windows, his heart in his throat. Nothing. There was only one more place to look. Under the bed. Fuck that. Wait, just a quick look. 2 seconds. He crouched low, his knees touching the soft shag carpet, and lifted the bed skirt. Drops of sweat fell as Eduardo looked under the bed, his eyes softening when he recognized the shape of an ironing board. Jesus Christ. Eduardo moved carefully to the master bedroom. He gripped the knob, and though it turned, the door didn't open. Stuck. Fucking great. He pushed it open with his shoulder, the door giving way with little effort. A faint aroma of perfume hung in the air. What's that smell? Lavender. As he stepped into the room, he heard a familiar sound behind him. Gabriella steadied her nerves as she walked into the foyer outside the two apartments and noticed that Eduardo had left the door open. "Hey, you okay up there?" No answer. The crackling of the bug zapper hanging outside the front door startled her. "Eduardo, where are you?" She gasped when, turning to the staircase, she saw him standing at the top, facing her. She had difficulty seeing his face, but his form came into view. "Eduardo," she whispered. He didn't answer. Instead, she saw him raise a finger to his mouth, telling her to stay quiet. Her heart nearly burst from her chest as he motioned for her to come upstairs. She ascended slowly and kept her eyes fixed on Eduardo. What is he looking at? He stood there motionless, staring into the apartment, his back now turned to her. 4 more steps. As she neared the top of the stairs, Eduardo stepped into the apartment and out of sight. "Wait," she called, trying to quell the panic rising within her. The unlit kitchen unsettled her, and as she fumbled for the light, she heard shuffling somewhere in the living room. "Eduardo, where are you?" she called, as her hand found the switch. She flipped it and heard a loud click, but nothing else. "I was stupid to come up here. What am I doing?" As she inched towards the hallway, a flicker of movement caught her by surprise. A silent gasp escaped as she watched Eduardo step into the bathroom. Eduardo, she said, the humidity catching in her throat. He remained silent, staring at the back wall. She was cut off by the creak of the kitchen door, and as Gabriella turned to look, Eduardo pulled her into the bathroom. For the first time, she saw his face. His forehead gleamed with sweat. His eyes seemed hollow and distant, looking past her as if on alert. Something is wrong. She tried to wriggle her arm from his grip, but the more she moved, the tighter he held. "Eduardo, what are you doing? Let me go." Finally, he relented. "What the?" Gabriella scrunched her brow at Eduardo. She swore his face had changed, his sharp features replaced with something else. A split second later, faster than she could blink, he was back to normal. She examined him, the hairs on her neck standing on end. This isn't right. It has to be the lighting. "We need to get out of here. Please, Eduardo, can we go? I don't want to be up here." Once again, he put his finger to his mouth. "What is wrong with you?" she said, shaking him by the shoulders. The exterior light flickered as the air conditioner revved up, and for the first time, she could clearly see his eyes were black and fully dilated. 2 unending pits. "I need to go now." A sharp pain shot up her arm as Eduardo squeezed her hand, her fingers pinched together by the force of his grip. She flinched as she heard the faint sound of someone calling her name. "Gabriella." I know that voice. "Gabriella." Closer. That sounds like Eduardo. Gabriella swallowed hard as the realization set in that Eduardo was supposed to be standing behind her. How could he be out there, calling for me? She turned. Eduardo was gone. In a second, Gabriella burst out of the bathroom and towards the staircase, stumbling in the darkness. She was stunned to find the door closed. I know I left this open. She fumbled with the knob, her sweaty hands incapable of turning it over. Why won't you open? Strong hands caught her shoulders, easing her fall as she slumped to the door. And as she faded to black, she glimpsed Eduardo standing over her as the horrifying sound of footsteps filled the space around her. Gabriella. The voice was now in her ear. Gabriella, wake up. You are having a nightmare. She jerked awake, her heart a snare drum in her chest. The window unit blew cold air throughout the room, her thin shirt offering little warmth. What a terrible dream. She turned to face Eduardo, relieved to be awake. She smiled softly as he cupped her ear. Must have been a hell of a nightmare. You okay? She nodded. It felt so. Gabriella struggled to catch her breath. She looked past him as the red digits on the alarm clock blinked brightly. 1:42 a.m. I'm gonna grab some water, she said. Maybe I should see a doctor. The ice water shocked her awake. What's that smell? A floral scent wafted to her nostrils, carried along by the air conditioner. Her skin crawled as she peered into each corner of the kitchen, sensing she was being watched but seeing no one. She skipped to the bedroom, her heart racing and breathing shallow. Gabriella pulled the covers up past her shoulders and rolled closer to Eduardo, hoping to quell the chill in her bones and get a few more hours of sleep. I've been having nightmares too, he said, his voice sounding as if it were caught between sleep and wakefulness. His soft snoring soothed her. His warmth helped roll away the tension in her body. She glanced at the alarm clock once more. 1:48 a.m. Then she heard it. Gabriella sat up and looked beyond the bedroom. The light refracted off the frosted kitchen windows, producing a crystalline effect throughout. There, crossing the threshold into the kitchen, was Eduardo, a wide grin spread across a featureless white face. What did you think of The Mirror? Comment on Spotify and let's talk about it. Normally I would give a special thanks to the author, but this is my story, and so I'll just encourage you to follow me on social media. On my personal account at wsoto201, at Red Treehouse Pod on Instagram and Threads, and Midnight Horror Podcast on Instagram. And of course, you can follow Midnight Horror Stories wherever you stream pods and on YouTube. Don't forget to leave a 5-star review. And if you'd like to submit your original short horror story for narration, email it to midnighthorrorpod@gmail.com or redtreehousepod@gmail.com. I'm Will, and thanks for listening to Midnight Horror Stories. See you next episode.